Hello, year 8. Welcome back after half term. Hope you had a good one. We're now, because at the end of last half term, we finished off the last topic and we did the spam, and it's all done and dusted, so we can start a brand new topic now. The first thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to, in the work folder, you see here is the best periodic table. And the reason why this is the best periodic table is because it is the one you will get in your exam. But when you open it, if you look, it is sideways. So if you can open a PDF, the easiest way, if you're on a computer, is you go View, Rotate View, clockwise, and then it's the correct way up. Now, again, this is the best one because you'll get it on your exam, exactly the same as this. And the key, which you need to get used to reading, because you are given this in your exam, you should know exactly what all these symbols mean. I'll go over that a bit more when we fill in the table, but it's good. It's very wise to get used to this table, and just also be very careful if you're Googling for a periodic table, that it is a European one or a British one, because the American ones are backwards. If you look here, let's look at lithium. The relative atomic mass is on the top and the atomic or proton number is on the bottom. In the American ones, it's flipped the other way around. Okay, so it's confusing if you get the wrong type. So where possible, use this one. So I'm going to minimize that. And here is today's work, and there is today's PowerPoint. So there it is. Okay. So, just to start with, well, I'll let you know what we're doing in today's lesson. We're going to go through the PowerPoint. We're going to colour in a periodic table, and then there's going to be a little bit of a data analysis thing towards the end. So you'll have to follow through the PowerPoint with me to be able to do the work. Now, just pause for maybe 30 seconds and think about anything you know about the periodic table. Right, hopefully you've done that. I'd like to make sure that you've got it written down, so that maybe it can be, this is what I knew at the start of the lesson about the periodic table, and just like write a few bullet points, and then we're going to go through it. So pause here if you'd like to read the lesson objectives. Now, I'd like you to look at your periodic table, see if you can spot any metals, and spot any non-metals. And I'm not going to tell you which is which or if you're right or not, but later on we're going to figure out a really easy way to separate the metals from the non-metals. Again, pause, have a little look, see if you can find any metals or any non-metals, and write any of them down. Okay, so as you can see from the PowerPoint, metals on the left, non-metals on the right, but I'm going to go into that in more detail later. Okay, what do we mean by a general property? Okay, so let's give an example of a general property. So melting point is a general property. Boiling point is a general property. Let me just get my pen. So here, let's have a look. A general property, so is it magnetic? Is a general property. Well, the melting point or the boiling point? What state of matter? Is it? So that means, is it a solid, a liquid, or a gas? Is it shiny or dull? Is it hard? Is it soft? What about being brittle or bendy? And the correct term for bendy is malleable. Okay. Another small properties, does it conduct electricity or heat? I should say H-E-A-T. Another one is it an insulator of electricity or heat? Okay, so these are all different general properties. Another one could be jet-like colors. So when I said shiny or dull, you can also say sort of grey, silvery colours could be a property compared to bright colours. Now, I'd like you to quickly make a little spider diagram, metals and non-metals, add any properties that you can think of. So pause it, any properties of metals. I'm going to give you an example. A metal generally conducts electricity, and non-metals generally don't conduct electricity. Okay, so hopefully you've paused it, you've had a go at that, and you've resumed it. So there's two examples. Metals can be gold, they can be shiny. Now, here are the properties. Now you'll notice that quite often they are opposite. So if you look, metals have a high melting point, but non-metals have a low melting point. Metals are shiny, non-metals are dull. Metals are malleable, which means bendy, whereas non-metals are brittle, which means they break easily. Hard or high density metals, soft and low density non-metals. You get the idea, right? They are the opposite. So if you know the properties of one, you know the properties of the other. Now these are general properties. There are some strange elements out there that do things that are a bit like a metal and a bit like a non-metal, but we don't need to know about that just yet. So green pen, what you've got, add maybe one that you've missed from each side. Then this next slide here, I'd like you to watch this video. So you're just going to have to click on the bottom there. It's just a little recap of atoms and properties. After you've done that, so pause this video and watch that one that's on the PowerPoint, and then unpause and let's go on to here. Now, we are going to go over to our periodic table now, and instead of me giving you the worksheet to do it, I'm going to take you through, because you are able to pause the video. So you've got your periodic table here. Now, if you can print it off, that would be perfect. If not, if you're working on a computer, you can type snip here, and then you create a little snip. So I would create the snip like that over the periodic table. Then you can open up Paint, or you can do it just right on here by drawing on it, and you'll have yourself an editable periodic table. Now I've got mine in here, so you'll need a pen, preferably more than one, more than one different colour, but it doesn't really matter too much. Now first of all, let's just look at the key. So relative atomic mass, so you don't have to draw this on, okay, but I'm just going to explain this. A relative atomic mass, that is the top number. Atomic symbol, you can see the next one up, the name, right? This key tells you which order the information appears on. So if you're ever unsure at what the numbers are, you can look at the key and it will tell you. So for example, this number here, that is the relative atomic mass of boron. So the relative atomic mass of boron is 11. The proton number of boron is 5. Now, we need to label our periodic table so that we've got some important information on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, get rid of, let's not do that. I'm just going to leave it. Now, let's start with the group number. So, if you look here, so this is group 1. Which is called the alkali metals. Okay, so you have to know that group 1, which is this group here, are the alkali metals. Now, the things that are in group 1 are lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. Now, group 2 is here. The elements that are in group 2 are beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and radium. So you get the idea, right? Now group 2 are the earth alkali metals. You don't really need to know that, but it's something that's good to know. Now the next ones that you need to know is you need to know the group 0 are called the noble gases. Okay, and you need to know that group 7 are called the halogens. Okay, so noble gases contains helium, neon, argon, krypton. You get the idea. The same for halogens. It's fluorine, chlorine, bromine. Now you also need to know, and I'm going to do this one in green, the period. Now period 1 starts here, and period 1 has hydrogen in and helium in it. Period 2 starts here, and it has lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. So you get the idea. Period 3, period 4. But what does that actually mean? So the group number equals the number of outer shell electrons. Okay, and what does the period equal? Well, the period equals the try and write sideways. I'll try and write sideways. The period equals the number of electron shells. So, let me give you some examples. Lithium is in group 1. That means that lithium has 1 electron in its outer shell. Lithium is in period 2. That means that it has a total of 2 electron shells. Now, later on you'll understand what this means, but for now it's important to get this information down somewhere. Okay. Now, you're going to go to boron and aluminium. Now the boundary between boron and aluminium here, I need you to draw a line like this. Then you're going to do stairs. So you're now going to go down, across, down, across, until you get to the bottom. Okay. Now, what you should know is aluminium is a metal. And boron, carbon, nitrogen, all these are non-metals. So everything to the right of this line is non-metal. And everything to the left of this line are metals. You can check really, because you can look for metals that you know. You know about gold, you know about silver, you know about iron, okay? You might have heard of stuff like lithium before, maybe lithium batteries. You know what titanium is. All of these are metals. So you know everything on the left is a metal. Okay, carbon, oxygen, fluorine. These are all the non-metals. Now you'll notice that hydrogen is up here by itself. Hydrogen is in the middle floating because it is a rogue element. O-G-U-E element. The reason why we put it here is because we don't know where to put it. It kind of acts a bit like a group 1 element. It kind of acts like a bit like a group 7 element. It kind of acts a bit like a metal, kind of a bit like a non-metal. It's very, very weird. So we've decided let's just put it right at the top of the middle. Now, the last thing you need to label are the transition elements. So all of these elements that are underneath this red line. So notice that group 1, 2, then there's a big gap before group 3 and 4. This gap in the middle, these are the transition metals. Now, when you learn about this in A level, it's the electron shells get a bit funky in the transition metals, and that's why they're a bit different. But starting from scandium, okay, going to zinc, everything in this little block is called the transition metals. And that is everything you need to label on your periodic table for now. So I'm going to minimize this again, you can always just pause and go back through if you missed anything. And we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. Now, a little task you can just do in your head. So it says here, imagine you are working at the periodic table passport control. Only metals are allowed to pass onto the left of the periodic table. What questions would you ask the elements at the border to figure out if they are a metal or a non-metal? So think about the properties of metals. What kind of questions could you ask to decide whether something is a metal or a non-metal? Now, we're going to do a little bit of sort of, I want you to do some thinking. In the folder, if this is too small for you, there is a trends.powerpoint that has this but a little bit bigger. But it's just exactly the same as what you see here. I want you to have a look at your periodic table, okay, and I want you to have a look at this slide. Look at each element. So let's have a look. There's lithium, beryllium, then there's boron, then there's carbon, then there's nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. I want you to look at the boiling points and melting points of each one. So that yellow one is the melting point, the orange one is the boiling point. Okay. So this is for the period 2 elements, and then it does the same for the period 3 elements, so sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon. I want you to have a look at those boiling points and melting points and see if you can think of any trends. Maybe it's got something to do with metals and non-metals. Maybe you can figure out which ones are gases, or which ones are liquids, or which ones are solids. Now, again, it's just really I want you to just think about it. There's not really a correct answer at the moment, but we will learn a lot more about the properties and the trends that happen, and it's good for you to sort of have some ideas in your head. So once you've done that, I want you to quickly look at lithium, chlorine, copper, and neon, and tell me, what do you know about those 4 elements? Okay? What do you know about those 4 elements? And then once you've done that, okay, then you are finished and you can email me your work.